Warning, some viewers may find this disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, Nyanstar here, and I had an abusive friend. If you've watched my school stories videos, you'd know that I was a part of a group of friends called the Nekomatas. There was my girlfriend V, who passed away in 2018, there was B, my best friend, and then there was A. On my first day of middle school, we had an assembly before any classes to welcome us. While I was sitting there, I started talking to the person next to me, which ended up being A. We enjoyed talking to each other, and I was happy when I saw them in both of my gifted classes. I believe he gave me a stuffed animal for Christmas, but we weren't all that close. But in 7th grade, A, B, V, and I were placed at the same table, and we all became close with each other. We called ourselves the Nekomatas, after the mythological two-tailed cat. That year, A and I were in the same math class. We sat together and grouped up with 2 other people, who I'll call Key and youngster Joey. Towards the end of the year, Key and I were messing around when I grabbed A's phone. This wasn't malicious in any way, but A responded to this by slamming his fist full force onto my hand. I cried and moved to a table on the other side of the class. We only communicated through notes that Key passed for us. I kept telling them that it was uncalled for to punch your friend, and he kept telling me that I was being too sensitive. Over the summer, A did apologize, but I was hurt and I didn't know if I should forgive them. Then my cat died the next day, so I started opening back up to A. The next incident happened not even a month into the school year. Halfway through 7th grade, a GSA club got started. A GSA club is a school club that stands as a safe space for LGBTQ students and allies. Ours was called the EAT, and all my friends attended. I never went there because I didn't really enjoy school clubs, and I was worried that I wouldn't be accepted. I'd seen biphobia in supposed safe spaces online, and I wasn't ready to be out to a bunch of strangers. But for 8th grade, V and B convinced me to go to the first meeting for the year. We met up in the cafeteria after school, and I started talking to A. They were surprised that I decided to join, and I told him, oh, I'm only really here for B and V. And he blew up at me. They called me a bitch and a slut, and I cried so hard I got dizzy. V comforted me and told me that if A made me cry again, then she would curb stomp them. I emailed V and told her that I wasn't sure if I should keep being friends with A. In the end, I didn't want to split up my friend group, and I forgave them. He never apologized for this, by the way. Things were relatively fine for the rest of 8th grade. In fact, I went to A's house and baked cupcakes with him for EAT. The next incident happened when V passed away in the 9th grade. A told the group chat when it happened, and I had a breakdown in class. My sister walked me home, and I texted A that I had left and needed to be alone. A lost their mind. They told me in all caps that I shouldn't have left, and that they wouldn't share any of the details V's mom told him because of that. They made me feel like a selfish jerk. Eventually they calmed down, apologized, and shared the details. We called for about 5 hours that day. I don't really fault A for this that much, since it was an emotional time, but it sure didn't make it easy for me. The remaining members of the Nekomatas had an Undertale sleepover for New Year's, and we had a good time. We had another one for the rest of Undertale and Deltarune for spring break. This time, things didn't go so well. Things were fine for the first day, but when we woke up the next day, A must have woken up on the wrong side of the bed. First, I wanted to play Deltarune completely pacifist. Since this was just Chapter 1, it didn't technically matter, but there are differences and I wanted to show B the best possible ending. Unfortunately, A wouldn't let me. They kept getting angrier and angrier when I wanted to spare someone, and we ended up fighting everyone. I was upset, but I tried to stay upbeat. When we finished, I wanted to show them a comic dub. It was the comic where Chris goes to Sans' house and Lancer is there instead of Papyrus. B liked it from what I remember, but A was ignoring me. I tried to get their attention, and they started getting mad again. He yelled that the video was awful, the people who dubbed it were bad, and I was stupid for liking it. I told him that they were being rude, but he just called me a bitch and tried to kick me out of their house, while it was storming outside. I ended up forgiving them because they convinced me that we were both at fault. Also, I was double-checking our group chat messages, and after I got home, I said, well, that was fun, let's never do that again. Now let's rapid-fire off some miscellaneous red flags. I would vent to my friends frequently about my parents. One day at lunch, A snapped and told me to stop complaining. If you're really being abused, then why don't you just leave? And not only is that terrible advice in general for abuse, but that's just not possible when your abusers are your legal guardians. We were visited by Child Protective Services before, and they didn't do anything, and I told A about this before. A also made fun of the way I ate my food with his friends. I've struggled before with eating, and A saw this firsthand in 8th grade, so this was just cruel and very triggering. A would threaten to hurt my little brother too. And yeah, I get frustrated with my brother, like any older sibling does, but I do care about my brother, and hearing the way A would talk about him was very concerning. A often excluded me from groups, like when they made a group for poetry and made all the other Nekomatas admins, but not me. A also had a close group of girlfriends he called their wives. As a side note, A was only interested in men, so this group was completely platonic. I asked if I could be one of the wives, since they constantly called me one of their best friends, but A refused and got mad whenever I brought it up again. There were also things like A getting mad at me whenever I wasn't at school, or didn't go with them to the GSA after V passed, or when I quoted a song they just showed me, and they told me that their day was worse than mine. Or when A and V fought viciously all the time and I had to keep getting in between them, like this conversation. You should never dictate how someone else grieves. Like A did on our call the day V died, and A got mad with B for how they were grieving. They badmouthed B a lot in high school, when B went to a different school than the rest of us. Now I feel like I should mention that A was diagnosed with bipolar disorder. This was the reason they gave for yelling at me most of the time. I don't know much about bipolar disorder, but I do know that V had bipolar disorder too, and she never treated me nearly as badly. She'd blow up, but it was never at me, and she never made me feel like it was my fault, unlike A. It didn't help that he would drink, and yes, they were underage. I'm extremely uncomfortable around drunk people, but A didn't really care and would drunk text me. They also smoked weed and vaped, and when I would express any concerns or discomfort, then I was just overreacting. By the way, I don't have any problems with people who smoke responsibly, but I don't smoke and I don't like being around it. Something that still upsets me is how A would talk about working and getting a job. Back in 8th grade, I was living in a hotel room with my brother and my parents. I was getting worried about our finances and if my parents would keep paying for my essentials. So I was voicing my worries when A started getting upset with me. They told me to stop complaining and just get a job, because that's so easy. Not to mention that I was too young to get a job without my parents' permission, and A got a job through one of their friends' relatives. V tried to defend me in this conversation, and I had to stop them from fighting again. And when A was yelling at me, he said this: "I only do this because I care about you," is something that manipulative and abusive people say. I'll read this quote out for you. "Maybe if you just tried harder not to upset them, things would be better, and you could get back to what the relationship was when it first started. You take their emotional outbursts as proof of how intensely they care about you, because if they didn't care, they wouldn't get so angry. Right?" The next major incident was A's birthday party. A's birthday happened weeks after the comic dub incident, and they invited me to their party. Unfortunately, I couldn't go. I was swamped with homework, and I was very anxious to be around people I didn't know. But my grades were slipping, so my biggest reason I didn't go was the homework. A was very understanding, until afterwards, when they kept bringing it up. They insisted I did something bad against them. I reminded him that I had a lot of homework that night, and they would reply, "Yeah, sure you did." And don't get me wrong, I know it's disappointing that I couldn't come, but they just kept harping on it like I was just being malicious. Not to mention that I had to tell A to wish me a happy birthday before the comic dub incident, and I wished A a happy birthday the moment I woke up and repeatedly throughout the day. The next incident was the final straw. In the last month of 9th grade, I almost had a seizure and had to go home. I ended up missing an entire week of school during finals because I was constantly dizzy. I missed tests and my sister's birthday dinner, and I had to go to the hospital. While this was going on, A was berating me. I'd missed a lot of school that year because I would get sick often, and sometimes I needed days off because I suffered from depression and grief after V died. So when A heard that I was missing school, they got irate. They told me that almost having a seizure wasn't serious enough to miss school. I told them that it was serious and I might die, and they told me that I wasn't diagnosed with anything, which felt like he was telling me that I was faking it. I told him that I've been to hospitals multiple times since I was 8 because of having seizures, and they told me to go get that checked out, which I just said that I had. A eventually apologized by once again saying that he did it because he cared about me, but I was in the hospital that day and couldn't talk, and I think they only said something because B yelled at them for stressing me out while I was sick. By the way, A once walked me to the nurse in 7th grade because I almost had a seizure. I stumbled and kept spilling the water I had, so they saw how debilitating this was for me, and they still said all this. Now, I'd been questioning breaking things off after the comic dub incident, and by the seizure incident, I was just done. I'd been researching abusive relationships, and realizing that A fit most of the criteria. In fact, Jaden Animations uploaded her video about relationships around this time, and it felt like it was speaking directly to me. So when we left school for summer vacation, I stopped talking to A and ignored their texts. I had made a large Google Doc listing all of this stuff and more, but the school therapist discouraged me from sending it since it was too cruel. In the end, I wrote up a small paragraph where I took some of the blame. I blocked A on everything, so I had to ask B to send it for me, which they were happy to do. A then proceeded to deadname B and begged them not to block him. They said that we didn't talk over summer enough to come to that conclusion. They only tried to be the nicest to everyone, and was upset that I wouldn't let them apologize. As a side note, you don't know an abusive person anything, not even the chance to apologize. B calmed them down, and I felt so much better. When we went back to school, I was relieved on the first day that I didn't see A. The next time I went to AP Social Studies, I saw A in class. I immediately turned around and left, because I assumed that I had the wrong class. After double-checking my schedule, I had to go back in. I was already stressed out, and then all the people who were assigned to sit next to me sat at different tables until the teacher scolded them. Towards the end of class, I started getting dizzy and having that near-seizure feeling. I ended up going home that day. Then apparently he ran to B to tell them that I left class because I saw him, which isn't what happened. Fast forward a bit, and I had to drop some classes to not stress myself out. A noticed this and started telling B about their suspicions. B didn't respond right away, so they got all pissy. So B told them it wasn't their job to tell my friends about my life like a private investigator, and A accused them of picking sides. B explained that I already told them about my classes and not to sass them. A responded with, "How was I supposed to know she already talked to you?" Which wasn't the point. My last message to B was the day after. I was very depressed and wanted to see if B would message me first, since I was the one who had to initiate the conversation 99% of the time. And it's been 4 years and they never messaged me directly again. A did try to message me with new accounts though, even though I asked them not to contact me. I'm writing this script in September, and something happened last month. I decided to download the data from my Instagram, and noticed that in my message requests there was a group chat I hadn't seen before. Apparently in June, B added me to a group chat with A to share a chalk memorial for V at a Pride vigil. That's right. My best friend doesn't talk to me for 4 years and instead chooses to add me into a group chat with my abusive ex-friend that I cut all contact with. Needless to say, I was pissed. And because A was blocked, I didn't see the message request, and I still can't see it in Instagram outside of my downloaded data. So I could have gone the rest of my life without ever knowing about this. Maybe that would have been better, I don't know. To summarize, I felt disrespected and unsafe in my friendship with A. They constantly got mad over anything I did, and made me feel like it was my fault. I had nightmares about A towards the end of our friendship, and I still have nightmares about them sometimes. I feared for my safety, I feared for my family, I feared that they would hurt themselves if I spoke up. but I knew that I couldn't keep walking on eggshells and crying after school every day. This isn't meant as a call-out or anything. We started being friends at 11 and stopped at 15, and we're turning 20 soon. So I sincerely hope that they're a better person now and in a much better place. But I don't regret cutting off A in the slightest. I still have trouble making friends because I'm worried about people turning out like A. And with the completion of this video, I'm officially letting go all of the built-up anger and resentment I've held onto. If you suspect that you might be in an abusive relationship, there are resources to help you, and I'll leave them down in the description and comments. Not all abusive relationships end as well as mine did. Stay safe and happy, okay? Bye!